All right, so here we are with Paul, and Gene is behind the camera, and we're looking at the subject of this week's Now and Then. Hold on, Paul, don't lean into camera yet.
Yeah, well...
This is the first of our 10-minute examinations of the weekly columns, and most of them will be talking to Paul and about, you know, the history. And this one is special because we just happen to be in the Pioneer Square area, and now we're actually going to talk about the column on location, as it were. So here, Paul, I'm coming to you.
It's a wonderful idea, Gene, that you had to do this. I don't know why we didn't think about it earlier, and I have resplendent gratification and honor to you and admiration on all the other Latinate consequences of feeling good and fit towards you, sir, and what you decided to do.
Well, that's very kind of you.
Talking about?
I don't know. You're babbling now, because we're down to 9 minutes. We've got 9 minutes to talk about this.
What if we go 11 or 12? Are you going to cut it off?
I'm going to cut it off. I'll give you a 2-minute warning.
You think that's what people can handle?
I think 10 minutes is our limit. At that point,
we can argue about that later.
Okay, later we'll argue about that.
Now, we're sitting here underneath the restored pergola. You remember it had been raked to the ground by a truck passing right at this corner, right over here on the right, maybe about a dozen years ago. Can't remember anymore how long ago it was. But this is as you know, as any reader of the feature that we do probably know, or any sort of average or history buff on local history will know that this is the center, the pioneer center of Seattle, this intersection, where we are at First Avenue, where it crosses Yesler Way. Yesler Way's original name was Mill Street, named for the Yesler's Mill. And they changed that name later in the 80s to honor the old man who had meant so much to our local prosperity with his mill, the first steam mill on Puget Sound, 53, 52, 53, 18. Now the thing is about the article that you'll read this week, or have read, is that we were a little uncertain about the date. And not only that, but we're uncertain about the meaning of the condition of Yesler Way, or Mill Street, in that photograph. It was dug up. There were piles of dirt on it. There was a drop-off of 2 to 3 feet from the boardwalk on the south side of Mill Street, right over there. And we wonder why. Well, the great work of public works and streets was done from 76 to 78, when there was a lot of changes made on both First Avenue and on Yesler Way, or Mill Street. That wouldn't still be the consequence of that. So what we speculated was that dirt had something to do with all the fancy construction work of elegant buildings that were being put up on First Avenue, or what was actually called Front Street, and on Yesler Way, or Mill Street at that time. So we speculated that the bricks that were in the middle of the street were meant to go on one of these buildings. And you, dear reader, dear listener, have the advantage now of using our blog to look at all the links we put with this week's contribution. I like that contribution. And see all the other things that we've written about this intersection or near it. And you're going to find out many, many more things than you'll find on that in just this week's feature. So do explore all of those links. And I make this point here the first time on Gene's 10-minute productions, and I think we're going to stick to 10 minutes, Gene. I think
we should.
You would argue about going longer, I know. I think we should stick to 10 minutes.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
Okay.
I'm in complete agreement.
Well,
now, in the article, can I ask a couple questions?
I haven't finished my thought.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I don't want to interrupt.
Well, I hope we don't have problems like this continuously.
I'm afraid we probably will. This is just like watching one of our shows.
I feel like jumping off of a boardwalk. All right, what's your question, Gene?
Oh, I was just fascinated.
Have you forgotten it?
No, not at all.
Yeah, what is it?
I was, on the second floor of what is now the Merchants Cafe.
Yes.
And in the old, there, I'm going to focus in on this. Let's see if I can focus in on the Merchants Cafe. Now, on that second floor, wasn't this Samus's photography studio? Don't you mention that in the article?
I think we do. I think we certainly should have gotten Samus in there because it's the principal building in this week's feature. Although Samus, of course, is long gone. But you can see, as you pointed out, along the side, which is on the alley side there, which you're pointing at right now,
which I'm pointing at right now, you can actually see that kind of the imprint of the steps,
right?
The building having been painted, and the steps having been removed after the painting of the building. So I thought that was kind of lovely, that you can see evidence of Samus in kind of a negative form.
I think it's brilliant. And you will see that article that we wrote about Samus in the features that accompany this feature.
Right.
Which makes my point is that every week we put a slew, a farrago, a lot of other features that are relevant mostly to the neighborhood.
Wait a second, did you just start with slew and then go to farrago and then go to a lot?
Yes.
Who is your audience, Paul?
I'm trying to speak to the more vocabularily eloquent and literate among them first, and if they stick, the others might too.
So from slew, which would be a
lot,
and farrago, which would be a lot,
and a confusing lot.
Yes, a confusing lot. Yeah.
So I was searching for the right word, and I came back to the old Anglo-Saxon one, which is what our English teachers told us to do to start out with. Don't use that fancy Latinate stuff. Go to the Anglo-Saxon stuff right away.
Right.
Look at Funk and Wagnall. Or maybe look to the Chicago style or something.
Chicago style.
All those people.
Or Hemingway.
Hemingway.
Who was a proponent of the Chicago. Didn't he come from Chicago? Sorry.
No.
Go on. We're down to like 3 minutes, Paul.
All right. So, again, I wanted to promote, and I did it now, the idea of really exploring the links that we give every week. And also mentioning again the ambiguities of the picture that we showed this week. What is the piles doing there? Why is there a drop from the sidewalk to the street that is still Mill Street then? Those are the ambiguities. Are those bricks actually for the buildings that would be going up, the fancy new buildings? And again, you'll see all of those in the extras. And so I speculated that those bricks were for those buildings, so I gave the date roughly as 1883. And I stand by that, Gene. I think that's the best explanation for it.
And of course, I'm jumping forward now, but of course the end of that whole block and construction and the wood there was a few years later with the fire.
All of this was destroyed in the fire, whether it was wood or whether it was brick. It all came down. And again, look at the links. You'll see lots of evidence of that.
Look at the links.
We've written probably a couple hundred stories on this neighborhood in the last 34 years. Yes, we have. So even though we're getting old and forgetful, we've got so much of that stuff in us, we do remember some of it. Where are we now, Gene? We're in Pioneer Square.
We are in Pioneer Square. We're
under
just
the pergola. You might pan up and look at the.
I'll pan up as you speak, and you can talk to us about the pergola a little bit, since
it was put in preparation for the 1909 Alaska Yukon Pacific Exposition in celebration of this pioneer place, and to give a little class to the oldest intersection in town, and it does. And it was quite a surprise when it fell down with a mere hook from a truck. Think of that. Now, here's another thing, Gene. You know the underground tour?
Yes, that's right.
From right over my right shoulder.
Right over your shoulder. Let's take a look. I see that it looks a little bit empty right now because I think the tourist season is over. I think I was told recently that while we have millions and millions of tourists, they come. 80% of them come in the summer months.
August. Well, they promote the idea that the grade changes in this neighborhood left an old neighborhood underneath the street here.
Right.
The evidence of that is confusing and varies a lot from block to block. And let's say it's controversial. Anyway, Underground Tour is more recreation. It's entertainment, and they can be allowed to continue the spirit of their creator.
Well, we come not to bury Bill Spidell, but to praise him.
Oh, Bill, yeah, I love Bill Spidell, a good friend, as is his daughters, are his daughters. So, no, but that's entertainment.
Yes.
And you should take that with
Grains of salt?
with a grain of salt. Can't we find out something else than that?
Well, we're now at 11 minutes. Any last words?
That's it then. Let's see. It's been great. Thanks a lot for thinking this up, Gene. I don't want you to violate your principles of sticking with 10 minutes, so let's get out of here.
Okay, here we go.
Next week.